Hello, everyone. We are live yet again, and this is going to be one of my authors' chats of the weekend in this case. And I'm going to keep an eye out for my co-host this Sunday. But we'll be talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. So I hope everyone, I know it takes a few minutes for people to get notified, but as people start logging in and jumping on, I hope we have a fantastic chat this weekend. Keeping my eyes open for her, sorry. But yeah, I see her. Let's see if she sees my invite. 3, 2, 1. Hello.
Right. How do I turn my...
See if I turn my volume up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
I can hear you. I cannot see you, and I don't know why half the time it does that. Hi! There we go.
Alright.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. So I'm glad you got to hang out with me today, since I know it's a Sunday evening, later afternoon for you.
Yep. It's nice and
But
sunny.
but yeah, so how I do these are pretty conversational and just low key. So you being my co-host this weekend, I'll let you introduce yourself and what you write, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So I'm April Grace and I write fantasy fiction. I have 2 different series. So I've got Still Princess, which is my debut, which is kind of like a futuristic fantasy with robots like androids, cyborgs, but also some magical stuff like sirens. It's a pirate story, so mermaids, sirens, sea creatures and things.
That's fun.
And then the first one, which I published in October last year, which is the first fairy tale retelling, which is this one's a Snow White retelling, and then I'll have lots of other Snow White or other like fairy tale retellings coming after
That's
that.
fun. So are those the only 2 books you have out right now, or do you have multiple books of each of those respective series? Because those are 2 different series.
At the moment, I have just these 2, but I am doing the sequel to this one at the moment, which is called Songbird Air. I'm getting the cover for it at the end of this month. So
Yay! I love that. I love cover reveals, and I think that's such a fun thing when you finally are able to see even the draft of what your cover might look like. And it's just because that's one of those stages, the steps along the process where you're like, wow, it's becoming real. This book's about to be out in the world.
covers as well. So
They are beautiful. But whoop, I think I lost your sound for a second there. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I think the sound dropped for a second there, but yeah. So let me ask you, because you're doing 2 series simultaneously, which is something I'm doing at the moment. But it can be a juggle of different characters, different plot lines. So what made you decide I want to do 2 different series and release them kind of more or less simultaneously versus do one to completion and then do the next, if that makes sense?
So I've don't know if you've ever done like NaNoWriMo or National Novel Writing Month. So I'd had this one in the process, and then I also had this one kind of on the back burner that I was quite interested in doing. I didn't want to just continue straight into a series. I don't know. I just wanted to try something else and then carry on with this one, like sort of straight after. And I've got plans for the sequels to both of them. So this one will be the first book in a duology, and then this one's going to be number 4 with
Woo! I was about
a
to ask that, like, how many did you plan for each of those series? Because some people, when they write, have no clue when it's going to end. Others are like, I know exactly how many books, and
I think I didn't know when I first started writing both the first ones, but now that I've sort of written that and got ideas for the rest of the series, it kind of comes
that's
into
cool. I love that. So, okay, so with your first one, you were saying that it is a futuristic fantasy, but it's still a pirate fantasy, which love all that. I know there's the term science fantasy, and I don't know if that's something that yours falls into because it's not something I necessarily write, but it kind of almost merges the sci-fi futuristic aspects with fantasy realms, and I know a lot of people like or are getting into that subgenre or are realizing that that genre has always existed for a long time.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
sorry, what?
So the series title is actually called A World of Magic, A World of Steel. So it
Hmm.
goes off into storylines a little bit. So you've got the android character, or the female android, which is a gynoid, and then you've got the other character is one of the tinkers in the palace that's always been like basically a prisoner in himself, and he goes off and has an opportunity to find like his family, um, but in doing so he gets kidnapped by pirates. So and then he does actually kind of end up finding his family, but not in the way that he expected.
I love that. That is so much fun. I love that. So, okay. I like the idea of using androids. I actually have a fantasy. Again, there's thousands of ways you can categorize your books in genres and subgenres. And my young adult series could be a portal fantasy, it could be clean fantasy, it could be kind of on the epic side of things. But I wonder if it also branches into the science fantasy realm because I do, as the series progresses, introduce cybernetic entities, and we talk about things like wormholes and portals and stuff like that, which a lot of people associate with the sci-fi things. But mine's a very fantasy realm, and I love all things with the fantasy. So
I was looking at the premises of yours, and you seem to have like quite a lot going on and lots of different types of characters in your series.
yes, each of my series is very different than the others, but kind of like what you were saying is you had two totally different ideas and you just wanted to explore both. So I think that's just a fun thing authors can do is explore and play and try and create all these wonderful realities.
Always nice.
So, with your upcoming sequel, your book cover is coming at, well, you will see the book cover at the end of this month. Do you have any clue of when your sequel will be released, or are you still kind of, figuring that out along the way?
I'm hoping it'll be this year at some point. It just depends on the editing aspect because I'm really struggling with the draft that I'm on. I'm draft 3 right now. It goes to my editor next month as well.
Wow.
So I can get like the developmental stuff sorted myself before it goes for like a copy edit because I've done manuscript assessments for both of these two, and I kind of want to change it a little bit and do the developmental stuff myself, and then
Hmm.
um, you know.
Well, and I do think like different authors, especially at various stages, when you start getting into your writing voice and your writing rhythm, you may, not necessarily always, but may be able to realize that you don't necessarily need every type of editor. You may need to focus on maybe the developmental side. I would still do the grammatical side, but there are also authors that don't necessarily need the developmental, which, if you're good about figuring that out yourself or you have a nice beta team that helps you out with that, you may not need it. And I don't at this moment use a developmental or dev editor, but I do rely on grammar and spelling because those are not my strengths.
I think I got to that point now because it's my third one that I'm like, maybe I don't need developmental, maybe I can rely on copy editing. But I have asked her to do like a beta editing type thing, so copy editing with some story like feedback if she sees anything, and she's like, yeah, that's fine, we can do that out. So
I love that. And also, when you've already set, and if any other authors are listening in and have different point of views, please chime in. But for me, it's like once you've set and established your magic system, your world, your reality, that helps you a lot get that leg up. And you may not need again that developmental side of things because you've already have things that are already been approved, set in stone, and are able again to help you improve along the way as you're widening your realities.
it's like you. I see you've got like loads of books in each of your series. Like this is the first time I've actually managed to finish or get through like a full sequel. Like with I don't know why. I've always found them really difficult to write. I think, and like even with the end of the first draft of this one, a lot of the plot that was in this is now a bigger part of book 2, and like has kind of taken the storyline a little bit. Because my uncle was like, well, it's a lot of the plot has kind of come into the end of this a bit too late. Like it didn't quite work with the plot, so kind of gave storyline. Like there's a pirate in this book that now has her storyline in book two. So she is yeah, if you read that one, it's the character's called Adelia, so
I
she
love that.
and her own a bit like her own book basically, but still narrated with three characters.
I see a comment popping up. Hi. Every book feels hard to write. That is true. That is true. It doesn't matter if you're like 14 books into an epically long series. Yes, you're gonna have struggles along everyone. Sometimes you'll have little joys where you're like, wow, this part is going far quicker than I thought. But you'll have hiccups and struggles along the way with every book, unfortunately.
But that's all part of the fun, right?
Oh yeah, challenges. Overcoming your own challenges. Now for the fun side. Okay, I love when authors really get into their worlds and everything. And I know the book talk community um, really enjoys either readers, characters, or authors playing up the fact that they are book talk authors. And there is the book talk crown that a lot of people wear, tiaras. I don't own one. I have a couple because I write Viking fantasy. I have a couple helmets, but not a crown. I could envision you, and I don't know if you have one. Envision you with like a pirate hat with like a little like edging of a tiara on top of it, being like pirate fantasy.
Red hair wig, like to cosplay the character. Like I keep seeing authors on here that are cosplaying their own characters, like with wigs and outfits and stuff. But
I think that would be fun. I have no idea how to cosplay as my own characters, which is hysterical because I wrote them, but I'm like, huh, I don't know.
I don't look like them. Like it's just
That's hey, cosplay you can have so much fun with, and I do think there is a fun overlap potential for fantasy authors and readers, and again, people who like to dress up and have a lot of fun. Because I do love to dress up and have a lot of fun, but again, I'm trying to figure out what character outside of maybe my shield maiden character, because she's
have something like your equivalent in the US. Like ours is called YALC, Young Adult Literature Convention. I think yours is YALC Fest or something along those lines. But it's attached. It's in the same building as Comic Con, and you always see them wearing really cool costumes.
yeah. Where I live in the state of Georgia, and we have a big Comic Con style convention called Dragon Con. And again, people, I've always considered, I was like, maybe I should dress as my own characters one day and just walk around. People be like, who are you? And I'll be like, well, just because you're curious, blah, 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 blah. I love that. So now that you have two books out, do you ever consider or have you done any live signing events for people, in your local community or out beyond that?
I've done a couple. So I live in Milton Keynes, in UK, and there's one called Hartford Book Fest, which was like a castle, like right next to a castle. Really nice. Like it's a couple of hours drive from where I live, but I was quite lucky because I have these two author friends, one Roxy Eloise and Ali Aldridge, and Roxy lives in that area, so she invited both me and Ali to this event, and we got to share a table and do a signing. So that was really cool. So we're going again this year as well because we got invited back because they're doing it even bigger this time.
Oh, that's neat. I'll have to say that is neat. I have not done a signing before COVID, and I don't know why I'm so hesitant to set one up, but I just like I haven't done one forever. It feels like, but that is really neat. And I always love when authors get out in the community because one, that's a great way for new readers to discover you, and it's also good for you to practice pitching your book because a lot of authors have really bad to like have struggled trying to figure out how to summarize their book in a way.
Let's have to summarize that in like three lines or three sentences.
Mhm. It's hard. It is like I don't know how many pages, how many words, and how do you get someone interested in my book in like 3 sentences?
Exactly.
It's so hard. It can be so hard. But okay, so with your okay, you have the pirate fantasy kind of with the cybernetic underlying aspects, and then the other one you said was fairy tales. Did I hear that?
Fairy tales. So this is a Snow White retelling.
Ooh. So if it's a duology, is the other one still the Snow White as well, continuing on, or is it okay?
This will be a Snow White sort of joint thing. This will probably be more Snow White retelling than the second book, but it'll be the same characters. And then I have like again from NaNoWriMo, a Sleeping Beauty one that
Ooh,
years ago, so I'm not editing that and
that's
um coming up uploading, so I've already
that's very neat. Yeah, I was gonna say the fairy tale retellings are super popular, and I know there are people who cannot get enough of them, and they're always looking for more. So that is fantastic. So how many books have you kind of come up with the idea through doing NaNoWriMo? Because it sounds like three at this point.
next maybe. I have a few. Another one which was kind of like mythology, or maybe two that are like mythology based, or one was like Arthur inspired, and then kind of loads of different ones. But
Huh.
then I wrote those years ago as well, so they would have to have a lot of rewriting if I was to bring those out later on. But
Hey, I mean, rewriting is part of the process, and I will admit, again, going back to my young adult, adventure based portal fantasy, epic fantasy, whatever you want to categorize it. But that one, those characters and a lot of the worlds and the groundwork was created during my childhood when I was the ages of those characters to begin with and even younger. And yes, I had to update a lot, a whole heck of a lot, because when you're like preteen, young teenager, and you're coming up with things, you think it's super cool, and then you're a little older now, and you're trying to like make sense of it. And you're like, huh, some of this has to change.
just a little bit. Like this one, I actually came up with when I was like 15, 16, and I'm 30 next month. So, um, but it was a futuristic version of the UK, and then it wasn't till like COVID time that I decided to rewrite it as like, oh, this is going to be a fantasy now. That she's going to be a princess, and like found family tropes and that sort of stuff.
That is cool. Well, again, that's the thing. It's like the older we get, and the more experience we get from reading, writing, everything, that's going to help you create better works going forward. At least you hope so. You hope that each book going forward is going to be better. But it also, for me, I will give you my word of advice, which is kind of one of those: just be aware. When you've written enough and you've had enough years of experience of being an author, and you look back to your first book, as amazing as it will may have been, you'll be like, "Wow, if I wrote that today, it would be so much better."
I was kind of at that point when I was like reading it, like reading back over it myself. But that's another thing that's kind of happening at the minute is an audiobook is coming out for it, for Still Princess. So when I was listening to the audiobook, which was narrated by Colleen Arnold, who is amazing, um, and all the fancy characters' voices like pirates and robots and stuff, I was like, oh, this is a really immersive world. Like, I feel really proud of this. So I suppose it kind of like fluctuates, between
Mhm.
um, is this better or it can be better, but I'm also, But then, like you say, once I've got like yours, I've got like 10 books. I might look back and be like, could be better.
It could. Hey, that's the thing is, I think almost any book. I won't ever say everyone because I'm sure that. Well, who knows? But almost any book could have some improvements on. Yet, kind of like any style art, also a painter. You have to get to that point where, like, you know what? It's as good as it's gonna be for this point of my life, and I need to move on so I can write the next one, and the next one, and the next one, or else I will always be stuck at the first book, tweaking it forever.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But
thank
what's
you. 100%. But yeah, see, that's a hard thing is earlier on writers or young authors, you have to figure out when you're going to be like enough. It is ready to see the world and go on because we have to. continue to write, or else we'll never improve. Or we'll improve, but no one will see our work because we're stuck.
The inspiration behind yours, because you've got big series.
I have three different series at the moment that, and I have some of them examples on my inverted poster behind me. Because one day I'll be really cool and have bookshelves in my future office, but small apartment right now. But I have three at the moment, and the inspirations vary dramatically, just depending on the series, and I think that may be familiar to some other authors. But my debut series, which I'll scoot you just a smidge, starting with the book in the blue, as far as Claws, and it's my only complete series, 4 books. That one was inspired by a dream. I had this dream, and it was whoever I was able to transform into a white tiger, and I was running around through a military camp being chased by other kind of bestial creatures, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And I could not get it out of my head, and I kept thinking about it and thinking about it, and the story kind of manifested itself, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a book. I already knew I wanted to write books. I wanted to write a different series, but I kept hesitating on that one because I did want to have a debut series where I could figure things out. And so I was like, okay, this will be perfect. I'll write one book and then I can move on. And it ended up being a 4 book series, but inspired by Green.
My friend Roxy that I mentioned earlier, we did a little like a fantasy talk, and she actually said that hers was inspired by Dream. I think hers is like a YA dystopian sort of thing. But
I think that is. And Catherine writes a book a month. No, I do not. Sorry, but that's a trick because my one of my other series is a novella series, so it looks like I put out a lot, but they're small, bite-sized stories. But those are dark fantasies based on Norse mythology, and I love mythology. All my stuff pulls from myth in some way, shape, or form. And the more working with some of these other series that I fell in love with Nordic myth, I really wanted to like do something with it, and discovered some really obscure lore about animal-shaped guardian spirits, and was like, man, I wish there was a book about these. Why hasn't anybody written a book about this concept? And I was like, oh yeah, I am an author. I could do that.
that's what you want to see.
Yep, exactly. And then my young adult series were again these stories, these characters that had came up in my childhood. And again, I always wanted to write them and share them with the world. Had no idea how to do it, but I was like, oh, it's going to happen one day. It's going to happen. I was so confident. Had no clue how to do it, but I was just like, it's going to happen. I'm going to write these stories. And so that one was my motivation to become an author, though they weren't the first ones I wrote. I know it's weird, but
Like look back later on and realize like where your kind of childhood subconscious mind got the idea from. Like I watched a film recently. I don't know if you know the it's like it's got the twins Double Trouble. I think it's like a very witchy film,
oh
and
yeah.
Olsen twins. That's it. When they're little, um, and they're like the two characters. And I think and it has a witch character in it that gets put into a mirror. What I think might have been the inspiration for this one. I was watching the film with my sister, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now I can kind of see where my little brain might have gone with that one."
Right. And that's fun too, is like even if you don't consciously realize what has been your inspiration, it is really interesting when you finally do kind of be like, oh, I wonder if that somehow did affect my love of this, or this kind of concept, or this twist. And I think, that's not a bad thing. We all kind of pull inspiration from people before. Just don't copyright, don't plagiarize. But pulling, inspirations, and we do that just automatically. Be it fairy tales, be it mythology, whatever. So, and I see we have a couple of comments. Let me try to skim through, just make sure I didn't miss anything super important. I see Rocco saying the quicker you get it out there, the quicker you get feedback for books. That is very, very true. And I also see you have to get another picture frame for, oh gosh, new book. Yeah, I don't have nearly all my books on this one. This is just a demo. Demo. But I do advise for every author who does a lot of things on this platform or other platforms, or especially live streams, do that inverted poster of your book cover or covers because it makes it so easy and just like that one.
Posters of mine, but they're in like the top of my bookshelf.
Ooh.
So they're like the A4 size. My dad's quite good at printers, so he printed it out for me, which is quite nice. So I'll have to get the new cover for the sequel to this one soon. And
Yes. I love that. I love that. Again, I love revealing book covers. I just had a recent book cover reveal, but it's so much fun. So, do you, with your book covers, how much control do you have of what it looks like, or how much of it is you trusting the cover designer to make it fantastic? Sorry, there's beeping behind me.
I trusted her, and then Josephine. Um, and then this one, because she kind of went with the castle concept. With the second one, I gave her the idea of like, because the second one's going to be like a siren kingdom when it's like crystals and like inside a cave is the palace. So I thought maybe she could do like a pinky purple sort of thing with another palace. But again, it's all she'll probably decide, like choose if she wants to do something. But that would be a cool theme if she could stick to that. And then book 3 will be more like mermaidy, so I'm thinking like light blue. So like
Ooh,
I'm not sure. We'll see.
that is very nice. No, it is really fun, especially when you, as an author, have some kind of concept idea of what you want, but the joint work between you and your designer is where the magic happens for the visual part. Unless you're an author that's really good and you could do your own covers, which I'm not capable of. I trust other people. I tried that once, it did not work well, so then I decided not to do that again.
I have much respect for people that are able to do that kind of thing. Like format their own books as well on the insides. I tried doing that with Soul Princess and it didn't work. I found it so difficult. Even just using like they say I've forgotten the names of them, but you can do like your own internal interior.
Yeah, I just got Atticus to help me do that and start taking more control. I have been using someone else to format her, but I do like the concept of at least having the skill set to be able to do it in case something happens and someone else isn't able to fit it in the time frame, because my goal will be, I saw you, D'Artagnan, will be to release more fuller length books in a year. Obviously not this year, but I'm getting closer. I'm getting better. I'm setting the groundwork to try to become a more efficient writer and still make sure my books are quality. It's a trick.
I think I was going to ask that. How many do you try to publish a year? Because I can only do like one a year.
Hey,
Personally.
that is impressive too, because when I started out, I don't know if I even hit one a year when I was beginning, because I was so new and I did not know, and nor do I think there was as much resources available for indie authors. But currently, this year is going to be my last year where I'm releasing one full length book for my young adult series and 4 novellas. It's the final 4 novellas. So going forward, I think my goal next year will be 3 full lengths spaced out. So we'll see. Of course, I'll be juggling different series and projects because I can't stay focused, clearly.
My thing is like, how can you even afford like all the expenses that come with that? Because like one book is expensive enough. Oh, I find.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I've started getting into, and I will be actually starting my next Kickstarter soon. So I've been working to set everything up, and on Tuesday, I know people who want to be notified, sign up for to be notified for my launch and all the other goodies that are going with my Kickstarter will be available. But that I have found, not just for me, but a lot of the other authors who've been doing it, they've all found that's been very beneficial. It takes a lot of work to do, but the rewards that have the potential to help you cover a lot of those upfront costs. And depending, because you're doing an audiobook, and that can be very expensive depending on how you do it. So, it's not a cheap thing. Not a cheap occupation, hobby, or whatever it is for you, but it is not. It can be pricey.
Yeah.
So for you with your audiobook and you've been listening to all the chapters, how do you like that? Hearing your characters come alive.
It was really cool. I'm really excited to. It's actually going through like all the processing sort of checks at the minute with Audible, so I'm really excited to see people, you know, see how it goes and stuff. But I think I'm gonna have some codes to give out as well. So if anyone is interested, um, I'm reaching out to people that like have blogs and that. So including Catherine.
Yeah. But actually, if you do have those, and you are wanting to get people to potentially give out some, run a book fairy on here or something. Just say, hey, like this whatever, and I'll raffle or draw so many handles names, and that may get some not only some buzz for your audiobook, but a way to distribute to people who are audiobook listeners and are interested in, to do that. That might be a fun thing that you could do. I don't know if you want to, but just an idea.
I don't know if you like it, but I've seen people do it. I think I just feel like a baby author at times. I'm new to everything, but
Hey, every author begins as a baby author, and you just have to start trying things out and figure out what your comfort zone is and have fun with it.
yeah.
And I see a pop up saying, nope, not cheap, but it is satisfying. Absolutely. Publishing can be so satisfying because,
And like I've got some pretty cool character art in mind as well.
ooh,
I think actually. So this is the map art,
wow.
which is Abigail Hare. That is Athena Bliss. That is my character Winnie. She is like Snow White's stepsister.
That is pretty. I have not been able to achieve that level of coolness of inserting character art within a book. It's on the side at this moment. I still need to expand on that.
I have a partner who is an illustrator, so he designed for me.
I have a question for you as you're thumbing through, and a question popping up from D'Artagnan. How many pages is the book you have you're holding?
500.
500.
For this one, I really struggled. I'm trying to find the no witch.
Wow.
Chapter.
Okay, so now I can totally understand why it's very hard to format that book because inserting that is like, wow. Oh, that's pretty. I see Rocco saying very neat. I think the art inside is really nice touch. See? Very cool. I know. I think yes. I absolutely agree with you, Rocco. The authors who insert those little special anything that just is a little above and beyond inside a book, or even if you are someone who does direct sales like and just doing those little extras, readers love that. But 500 pages, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I had to make the actual size bigger, so there is a bit of a difference.
Okay. That that is really cool. Yeah, no, I definitely some authors who write some of those bigger, heavier tomes, giant books. I know it becomes a little bit of a struggle because you're trying to figure out how big of a book you want, the size font, because you want it to fit nicely, not be too small. But there is a limit to how big a book can be to print, and so how much time did it take you to write a 500-page book?
I think I can't, a couple of years maybe. I don't know. I think both of them. Like my editing is the thing that probably like most people I spend the most time on. So editing and writing.
Oh yeah.
And then now National Novel Writing Month thing, I wrote like the 50,000 words, and then after that I sort of carry on. add plot and add more things to it.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I That's another goal, long-term goal, is to write faster because I don't know. I look at some of you, and again, nobody should truly compare themselves to someone else because everybody else has different talents, skill sets, and we all go at our own pace. But when I was just like, wow, I look at, I understand a lot of my days marketing and advertising, and again the editing part, but just trying to get a lot of words on paper during my writing days, it can be hard.
It's harder to write smaller books. So like, you've worked out like how many have you got in your things, your novellas?
Yeah, I have. I'm about to release my 13th. There will be 16 in all. I've written them finally, but they're just in different stages of editing and the release schedule. But yeah, they're the nice thing of those was I wanted to challenge myself to write shorter works. So then because I wrote slightly longer works, not the whole full 500 pages, but still some denser books. But it's a nice to feel a little confident being able to write style to longer style stuff. But nah, that's a pat on the back for you. I was like, that's impressive.
Like, I think I did went to uni and did creative writing, and I could never write the short stories. Like I always struggle to write them because they always end up being a lot bigger than I think I had to like narrow it down. And when I was editing that one, I just found it really difficult, even with like beta readers, with my editor's feedback. Like I found it really hard to not feel like any of the story wasn't important, and to take it out. And even one of my readers was like, "It's not fluff. Like it does seem like it belongs in the story." So I can kind of see why you struggled with that one.
And that's as the author in the end, especially if you're it should be up to you of what you think is important. Yes, editors and they can be correct, and sometimes it's hard to hear those moments where they're like, "You really need to scratch this or tighten this up. It really doesn't need to be worded that way, that length." I get that because you do want the story to have flow and movement, and again, you don't want readers to be like, "Why do we spend 5 pages describing someone's gown?" I get that. I get but on the other hand, I have some friends that write very, very 1,000 page books, like very big books, and everything they left in was important. And that's after editing it down. So don't be afraid to have a larger book, but also have to have that okay conversation with editors and really decide if truly everything needs to be in there. And you might know because you may be putting in things that are foreshadowing, blah, for a future book. And they're like, "Why'd you put it in there?" I'm like, "But it will be fun and matter and tie it in better later on." You get to. Let me see. Let's see a comment pop up saying, whoop, I think I missed a comment. Let me scroll back up. Okay, I see the idea of writing a long book makes me panic. I have no clue how authors write that much. And then part two goes on and have to be important and plot and relevant. That's true. It is. It's well, one, never feel obligated to write a big book. There is no, you don't have to. You can write a shorter book. People love, there are definitely people who like the shorter stuff. So you just have to do what's right by your story and, don't stress out. But yes, make sure what you put in is relevant and it's not just you. Because I did it in the beginning. I would like start talking and side tangent and people like, hold it back, reel it back in.
My problem is like I like Steel Princess is just slightly smaller obviously, but it has two storylines. Like it goes off into, and like The Girl Behind the Glass, it has three narrators, and again similar storylines, but I think it's really hard when they've all got, you have to give them all the same character growth, and when you've got a lot of characters, it's like trying to give them all like camera angles.
Mhm.
And
I'll admit, I guess I have a little bit of the cheat on that one is I've always, up until the last project I just finished writing behind the scenes, I've always done one person, followed one person's point of view and did not worry about doing multiple. But I am trying to challenge myself, and it does add that extra layer because you really do need or want, at the very least, all your point of view characters to have change, development, growth if it's growth, or at least some change in some decent way before the end of the story or book. And that does make it challenging.
Exactly.
And I see some more. I love a chatty group. Okay, sorry, I'm like trying to catch up. Um, was he trying to unlearn the idea that longer books equals a better book? Yes, that is not always the case, so do not assume that. But if you like to write a big book, great. If you like to write a small one, great. They're going to be readers. You just have to find them. That's the trick. Finding readers can be hard. And I also see a comment popping up saying, only read big door stopper books growing up. I didn't realize I could have written shorter books. It's okay. Now I'm stuck in epic fantasy. Hey, I love epic fantasy. But yes, they can be big.
Whatever size works for you.
Yes, exactly. So let me ask you, April, a couple things because I do want to make sure I ask my go-to questions. One, with your pair of books, where can people find them and get them? Like, do you sell wide? Are you only exclusive through Zon? Do you sell direct? Like, where can people buy and find your books?
Um, this is on
Amazon. I love it.
an Audible soon for the audiobook for this one.
Yeah. That's exciting. I don't know. I love being when I hear authors getting into audio because it's been a fun process trying to do that myself. It's going to take me a while to catch up because I was way late in the game for as many stuff. And I'm going to catch up eventually. I keep telling myself. But another one I want to make sure if for people who want to find and follow you outside of Book Talk, where can people find and follow you? As in, do you have a website? Do you have a newsletter? Are you on other socials? That kind of thing.
April-grace.com website. April Grace Reads, YouTube and Instagram are both the same. I think that's it.
Hey, that's
April Grace Author.
I think it's a very smart idea, especially when you're starting out in the writing career, to less is more. I guess start with less things, focus on them, and then you can build out if you want. You don't necessarily want to be like me and try to be on all the platforms at once and then overwhelm yourself. So less is more. It's the best way where you can master something and then, if you want to expand and go on from there. But yes, do not be on all the things right at once. It's a hard don't do that. But yeah, okay. I did want to ask that because if this platform is nice, sometimes it's not nice. But if it's nice, I'll be able to hopefully, crossing fingers, repurpose this on my YouTube channel where I'll add all your links so people can continue to find and follow you going forward.
That'd be cool, thank you.
Yeah. And okay, so rounding back to your books one more time. I know you have one you're hoping to release that first sequel to release some point this year. Do you have any clue when you're going to finish your duology, going to your other series? Is that like 2 years?
I work in a school, so I will have all of the summer to then work on. Hopefully, once this sequel is done to this one, I will be able to go straight onto this one. The plan was to kind of go into book 3 as well of that one because it took me a while to get the second book. So it's been 2 years since this one was published. But I do want to both. This would be a completed series, so I kind of want to prioritize that.
Yeah.
So that
And there
keep people waiting too long, but at the same time, let's be realistic.
Oh yeah, you have to be realistic, and I know readers want everything right away, and I love it. I respect that, but you also have to respect when you're writing a 500-page book and then editing it and then doing all the other things behind the scenes to prep it. It's going to take time. But yes, very true. And another thing is when you do have a complete series, standalones, that's why some people love writing standalones, but complete series as a duology or above, there are definitely readers who wait until something's complete, which I don't understand that one. But I know they exist, so I know you might be able to reach new readers once you complete your duology. So that's cool.
But that'll be my Snow White one. Then I might go on to Sleeping Beauty after that, and so on. There'll be lots of like retellings in the same world, basically with like connected characters. Um, but it'll just take time for that.
It's
So,
oh, it is okay. Now, again, never, never, ever, ever make yourself super stressed trying to keep up with someone else because I do that and it's not healthy. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, no, everybody has to again because we all have our own challenges. Some, like you said, you have you may have school, you may have work, you may be rearing your own kids, you could be doing all at once. Don't rush it. You want your books to be as the best thing they can be. So, and I know some other authors are chiming in. So if you have recommendations, points of view on that too, let us know. But yeah, never rush it. So let me also ask because it sounded like that you were a young creative in the sense that I had stories coming into my brain when I was a childhood. When was or what age were you when you started thinking of fantastical stories? Was this something you've always done, or is this something like when you? I know you said I think 16 you were kind of coming up with one of your ideas.
I think fantasy kind of came in like maybe late teens, early 20s, but like early teens, I think it was kind of like not I wouldn't don't want to say thrillers, but like kind of like Our World, but with a twist. So there's really good authors that I really like. Terry, Sophie Mackenzie. They write like YA, that are kind of like thrillers or dystopian or something. They have like they relate to our world, but they also have like a twist. And I was reading a lot of those when I was a teenager, and I think that was what inspired like that was kind of the idea of this one actually, the original version before it became a fantasy. And then when I was in uni, I was reading a lot of fantasy and dystopian books, and I really liked all the idea of all of that. And I think that's kind of what got me into fantasy and wanted to write fantasy. I think it was really difficult when I first started because I'd never written it before. But and if have you ever had Wattpad as well?
Yes, I've heard of this.
I used to write on that when I was like a teenager.
Hey, that's cool. I've heard a number of authors use that as at the first step, or have used that as an alternative means for different series. And again, if you're a multi-series person simultaneously, as you and I are, that people have used Wattpad to help kind of get their feet under them. And I see some comments popping in. Rocco saying readers will read if you can help them find similar books as yours. It helps give them more books to read that they like and tide over until you have the next one out. Yeah, if you are that smart person writing in a certain niche genre that you know similar books for, that's great. Or you're like me and I just write a book and I'm like, what books are what books are oh no. But yeah, no, that's funny. But yeah, Wattpad. A lot of authors have used Wattpad before, and so that's pretty cool. So let me also ask you, and this goes for everybody listening, because this is my third of my three regular questions that I like to ask. And this goes again for anybody listening. Is there any topic you wanted us to talk about that we have not covered, or any questions you have for us that have not been asked? And the same goes for you, April. If there's any questions or topics that you wanted to discuss, I know again you're working on you'll for too long we'll have your first audiobook release, so that is so exciting.
I think over the next week or something, depending on when it gets processed and accepted.
Oh yes, for people who don't know, have not experienced this, the processing for audiobooks is wild. Unlike other books, where you can theoretically set a publication day, you essentially you let I've used Audible too, so the ACX platform, and you're like, okay, we're good to go, and then they have to go and do all their background checks and make sure everything is correct and the sound is good. And that can take up to, I think, 14 days. So up to 2 weeks. And any time in that those 14 days, your book can go live. So it's hard to market that one until it's out. And you're like, hey. It really is.
I haven't got it yet, but I'll give you some codes when I.
Yes, exactly. And then that's the nice thing too, is you get so many codes. UK, I think it's like 25 UK, 25 US that you can share with people. And then when you get done with those, you can ask for one more round of those. That's it. But that's nice because you're able to get them out to, people, your super fans or reviewers or stuff like that. So take advantage of that. I always forget that I have those.
I'm trying to get ready now so that I can send them to people as soon as I've got it sorted out.
That is awesome. That is absolutely amazing. I also see Rocco saying, I'd love to hear what went into setting up an audiobook. I see you're discussing it now. So, what was your process of setting up an audiobook?
So got a really cool narrator called Colleen Arnold. Um, as Catherine mentioned, you got ACX, which is like the platform that you basically set up like a sample on there, and then people can audition. I've also seen an author on here that's doing like a pirate book, that she's narrating her own.
Yes, Kennedy.
Yeah. I wish I could do that, but I don't think I could. Especially now that I've had my narrator do all the different pirate voices and robot voices and all the different characters. I didn't realize I had 60 characters in my book. That was the thing that she said. Yeah, see, and then they upload like chapter by chapter all the different little mini files basically of your audiobook, and then you go through, you listen, you accept it when once it's ready. Because I wasn't like I'm in UK, my is in the US. I wasn't too fussed about the accents because it's a fantasy world, so I didn't really mind if it sounded more American or more English or whatever. But two of a prince and a princess character sounded more like the old English, like if you've ever seen or heard of My Fair Lady.
Yeah,
Um, sound quite as like royal or regal enough to me. So she went back through and she changed those voices for me. And then I think it was like Thursday I accepted it. And now I'm waiting for it to all be processed and
that's
then
cool.
codes and stuff for people and start promoting it more. So
I love that.
it can be a
And
long because it can
sorry,
take
what?
people months to actually narrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And schedules alike. But she said it was her first fantasy book, but you wouldn't be able to tell because she did it really well.
That's so cool. I'm so excited for you. That's so neat. And yeah, going back, Rocco, there are different ways and different platforms. We both use ACX, so that's Audible, and they do distribute on iTunes slash, of course, Zon. But there are other places too where you could use that probably do similar things. I just don't know the background. I also know authors sell direct. Still, that one I'm curious about. Don't know how to do that. But yeah, for Audible, depending on how you want to do it, there are three options. One is, as you said, you set up kind of a reading sample and people audition who are like, ooh, this sounds like a project I'd like. And you can kind of go through all their auditions. You can also go through their plethora of narrators, or if you have a narrator that's not on there necessarily that you're interested in, you can kind of reach out and connect and, talk behind the scenes to kind of, come up with a partnership that way, or you can do it yourself. I'm not that talented. I would not do it myself. And then when it comes to payment, just be aware, at least on the ACX side of things, there are three things you can do. There is pay in full, which means you have full rights to do whatever. You can take it wide or keep, exclusive, and there are perks and reasons why people do a different way. There is the 50-50 split where you don't pay anything up front, but you are in a deal for 7 years, I think, with the narrator where all your percentage of profits is split 50-50. And that also means you have to kind of stay on ACX, I think, exclusively until that goes through. So be aware for that. And then, of course, if you do it yourself, not a dime. But I'm not that talented, do not have that equipment. I would advise people to, unless you're very skilled, to look for one of your narrator options. So that's my summary, because I've done a little bit of most everything, just not narrating it myself. Would not do that. I do not have that voice for radio. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm keeping an eye. I don't know if anybody hears the clink, but I have my dog walking through, and I'm just waiting for him to knock down my ring light. So if I go sideways, that's because of the dog. So I pre warning. But yeah, that is a fantastic question. And since we're rounding the end of the hour, first thing first, thank you for hanging out with me this evening for you.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, and like I said, I like doing these because I always learn things from people and love to talk with authors and readers from all over, and it's just a fun way to meet the other book community. So thank you. I really do thank you because it is a weekend for you.
And not books as you.
It's fine. Everybody starts somewhere, and it doesn't matter if you have one. It doesn't even matter if you're working on one. Sometimes some of the best things you can learn is when you're in the process. And yeah. But if you ever want to do another one of these, just please let me know. I schedule them in advance, and I try to do them about weekly.
I'll definitely appear again because it's nice to chat.
Yeah. And for everybody who's been listening today, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us for this last hour or so. And because my dog has walked through here twice, I'm assuming it is time. He is signaling me his regular, I need to go out. So what I will do is bid everybody adieu, and thank you again for hanging out, and thank you, April, seriously, for coming out and hanging out on the Sunday, and we'll keep in touch. Bye, everyone.
Bye.